What is the meaning of Chacham here? There are two conditions to be a Chacham, to whom you should go and seek, that he should daven to Hashem and ask compassion for the Jew to be able to experience a recovery, whether it's physically or spiritually. What is it? The first is Aleph, he has to be a Chacham. What's a Chacham? Ezo Chacham harayes hanoilad. The Gemara says in Maseches Tamid Lamed Beis, Alexander of Macedonia, Alexander the Great, asked the sages, who is wise? And they said, harayes hanoilad. Somebody who sees what is born. Naturally, we translate it as somebody who has vision, somebody who sees the future, somebody who sees years, decades ahead. Long-term vision. There's a problem with this translation. According to that, the sages should have said, Ezo Chacham Haraya Mashayi Voled, that which will be born tomorrow. Haraya es ha'os, it's somebody who sees the future. Look at their words. Ezo Chacham Haraya es hanoilad. Who is a Chacham? He who sees that which is being born now. Upidish Admur Hazak. So the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, in Tanya chapter 43 explains this statement of Maseches Tamid Lamed Beis. Sheroyes advar Hashem shemoiled umahave kol nivroyim bechol rega v'rega. Every moment God gives birth to existence. Every moment, every nanosecond, the cosmos is recreated, including me and you. Every moment the world is renewed again because the entire world is divine DNA, divine energy. Today we speak about living organisms as made up of DNA, which scientists call letters because it's like a program. They use the word program for it. It's like a code of a computer. The sages already said, the world is made up of letters. The world is made up of consciousness, divine consciousness. The Torah says God created the world through words. This is the divine DNA that is recreating the universe of every single moment. Ezo Chacham, what is the real Chacham in Judaism? Not a guy with a good IQ. Not even a guy who's brilliant and intelligent. No, that's an Oiber Chacham. What's a Chacham? Haroyes hanoilad. Says the Alter Rebbe, he sees that which is being born. He looks at the cosmos, and what does he see? He sees the divinity of every moment, of every experience, of every person, of every phenomenon, and of every reality. Haroyes hanoilad, he sees the world being born. Somebody who looks at a person and he sees the divinity of the person. Somebody who even looks at an ant or a shrub or a bush or a tree or a grain of sand or a droplet of rain or a flake of snow or a microbe or a microorganism, and he sees the DNA, the divine DNA. Just as we all know, I look at the world and I see one world. I use a microscope and I see a different world. What looks like a mic, what looks like a stable table is really so many atoms moving in this perfect precision. Nobody ever saw a virus with their naked eye. 125 nanometers, the particles of the coronavirus. You need different eyes. You need microscopic eyes. So some of us see the chumrius of the world. We see the brute crassness of the world. Some of us see the gashmius of the world. Not the crassness, the physicality of the world. That's already much more refined. And if you appreciate science and physics, never mind modern science and physics, you know how much refinement and incredible dazzling brilliance exists in one molecule, never mind in one atom, never mind in one particle of an atom, never mind in subatomic particles, never mind in quantum physics. So you may see the world on so many different levels. Depends what type of glasses you're wearing. Am I wearing my own glasses? Am I wearing microscopic glasses? But then there are the glasses of a Chacham. Ezo Chacham, haroyes hanoilad. He sees the world being born. He sees that the world is a derivative and a manifestation of divine consciousness, divine energy. The doors of perception are cleansed and everything appears as is. So he sees everything in its ultimate truth. He can trace everything back to its ultimate origin. V'lachein thus, Aleph, b'yicholti lahakir es hachoyli lamitosai. He can recognize every illness in its ultimate origin and truth, because we know every single illness manifests on so many different levels. Let's remember that for generations there were viruses. For millennia there were viruses. There was a Black Plague in the 1300s. But nobody can identify the origin. They didn't have the scientific tools to be able to go back to the source, so therefore they blame the Jews that they're poisoning wells. It was only in the 1800s, the 1890s, that they discovered the phenomenon of a virus. And every year we're discovering more and more and more while developing more refined tools to be able to take an illness and trace it back deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And the Chacham can see the ultimate core of it, which is always in the spiritual consciousness. There was a big quantum physicist. He's actually considered one of the founders of quantum physics, I think a Nobel Prize winner. His name was Max Planck. And he once said, I'm not quoting him verbatim, but close to verbatim. He once said, I don't see consciousness as a derivative of matter. I see all matter as a derivative of consciousness. We always thought the world is a place of material reality, and our consciousness comes from matter. Today we know matter is a derivative of consciousness. The matter that I see is only because my eyes define this as reality, and therefore it becomes reality for me. Matter is a derivative of consciousness. You change your mind and you change your find. This is science today. This is physics today. But Judaism takes it a step deeper, and that's where science and physics are going. What if you can trace it back to a deeper place, to a deep place, to a deeper place? Then you can identify the root cause. The moment you identify the root cause, that's where real healing comes from. The Chacham can see an illness, but sees in everything the Dvar Hashem. And when you see in everything the Dvar Hashem, you see it in its ultimate pnimius. You can trace back the dysfunction all the way back to its root. You know, we speak about very often that Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah change the world. It brings healing. It brings blessings. And people think, it's some mystical, cute zgul or blessing. But the truth is, it's not that way. The world is really a very deep spiritual place. And the spiritual dynamics of the universe have a direct impact on the physical dynamics, because the physical is a manifestation of the spiritual. So when somebody connects with the divine through Torah and mitzvahs, it actually brings down an energy that directly impacts the physical world, because it's not two separate worlds. It's one world. There's perfect symbiosis between them. And yet we live in the practical physical world, and God tells us, V'rapi, to have to use the natural methods through our observations of the physical world in order to bring healing, but it's always coupled with connecting to the source of everything. Beis, the Chacham can arouse compassion and heal. Why? The Mekivan Sheroya is Dvar Hashem, Ki Oz Befsheruse Lashanas Hatzirufim Al Derech Misham Al Shem and V'yidloik, Hu Yom Al Chaimitz V'yidloik. The Gemara says in Tanya Daf Chafer, Reb Chanina ben Doisa was so poor. And Reb Chanina ben Doisa's daughter lit Shabbos candles, and then he saw her crying. He said, why are you crying? So the Gemara says, she said, because instead of pouring in oil, I poured in vinegar. We didn't have oil. I thought it was oil. I poured in vinegar, and the oil, the fire won't be able to last. It won't be sustained. And Rabbi Chanina said, whoever told the oil to burn will tell the vinegar to burn. And the Gemara says the candle remained burning all the way till Havdalah, and they took the Havdalah candle, they took from that candle. So it looks like a miracle. Chanina ben Doisa was a miracle man. The oil burns, the vinegar burns. But look at the words. Misha Omar L'Shem and V'yadlik Yom L'Chametz V'yadlik. So the Baal HaTanya explains something magnificent that comes already from the Maggid of Mizrich. Misha Omar L'Shem and V'yadlik. Oil doesn't just burn. There's the chemistry of oil. There's the atomic makeup, the molecular makeup of oil that causes it to be a flammable substance. But go further back. There is the spiritual chemistry of the oil, the unique configurations of the divine energy that constitute the soul and the chemistry and create the functionality of the oil. There are literally configurations, just like in living organisms, you have the DNA, you have everything is living from the Dvar Hashem, from the configuration of the divine letters. Reb Chanina ben Doisa said, Misha Omar l'Shemen v'yadlik, Yom l'chaimetz v'yadlik. He can change the configurations. He can tune in to that level of Dvar Hashem, and now the vinegar can burn. Who can do that? Only somebody who's connected to the source. It's like a computer programmer. I'm not a computer programmer. And when I watch my programmer programming things and I look at the program, it looks like gibberish. I just see the final product, but everybody knows that the final product is really just made for dummies. It's for us dummies who don't deal with program codes. We look at the final product, and I can't change anything. I tell him, can you change the color scheme on the page? He says, no, that needs a whole back end, a lot of work for hours on the back end. You go to the back end and you see letter after letter after letter after symbol after symbol. Nothing makes sense to me. But over there, you change it around and everything changes on the outside world. We look at the outside and we say, this is where it is. This is not where it's at. This is important. This is the user's experience. Now, let's face it. This is where the user uses it. This is the purpose. It's the tachlis. We have to be in this world. But where it's at is in the back-end program of the programmer. In this case, is the Dvar Hashem, Misha Amar L'Shem and V'yadlik. That's the Chacham. The first quality of a Chacham is he sees the divinity in everything. Therefore, he can recognize where this malady is truly coming from in its source, and he can reconfigurate. And hence, cause through his davening and his rachamim and reaching out to Hashem that this Jew should experience full healing, not from outside in, but from inside out. And it's interesting, the Gemara says in Maseches Brachas, I think Yud Zayin and Tainis Daf Chavdalet, that every day there's a voice that comes out from the mountain of Chorev and says, Kol ha'olam kuloi nizoin b'shvil Chanina b'ni, v'Chanina b'ni dayoi b'krav charuvim erev Shabbos l'erev Shabbos. The whole world gets nourished because of Chanina, my son, Reb Chanina ben Doisa. And for him, it's enough for him to have a little measure of carobs every single week. That's all, Friday to Friday. Erev Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, he has a little measure of churban. Everybody eats because of him. The Baal Shem Tov once said, B'shvil Chanina b'ni has two interpretations. Shvil means because. B'shvil also means a path. The whole world gets nourished b'shvil Chanina b'ni, through the path of Chanina. Chanina b'ni, Reb Chanina ben Doisa was a Moshe Rabbeinu. He was a conduit, a channel. Kol ha'olam kulei nizoin b'shvil Chanina b'ni, through the shvil, through the energy, through the soul, through the oneness of Reb Chanina ben Doisa with Hashem. Where do you see this? Now you understand the connection. He can tell his daughter, Misha Amar L'Shem and V'yadlik, Yom l'chaimetz v'yadlik. Reb Chanina didn't experience the world as something separate from God. He experienced the world as a manifestation of divine DNA. And when you experience the world as that manifestation, you look at every person different. You look at yourself different. You look at every person different. You look at the world different. That's not enough. It's not enough to be a Chacham, to go to a Chacham and ask for rachamim for a person who's sick. Sounds great. The Rebbe says it's not enough. You need one more condition. Beis, ha-Chacham tzarech liyas be'ir. 35, Lashon Ramah, Yoyre Deya. Simen, Soif Simen, Shin, Lamed Hey. You go to Shulchan Aruch, Yoyre Deya. Simen, Shin, Lamed Hey. 3:35, the Ramah Rabbeinu Moshe Isserlish writes, and I quote, source number 18, Yesh oimnim shemish yesh lo chayla bebeisa yelech etzel chacham shebeir shevak shlav rachamim. If you have somebody ill in the house, go to a chacham in the city to ask rachamim. The Ramah puts in the word shebeir, a sage in the city. Why is he saying that? Obviously, don't go to another city, go to your city. Obviously, I can't go to another city. The Ramah was before the Wright brothers. It wasn't easy to go to another city. Why does he have to add the word Shabeir? The Gemara doesn't add the word Shabeir. The answer is, this is not a technical description. It's an existential description. She'enoi soiger es atzmoi bedalad amoisav. Ime yoisoi asad betalmud Torah tfilu sharin yonim nailim. Ki imotzuihu betoichiyusa shel ha'ir. Umasur lekol echad ve'echad b'bnei Yisrael hanimtzoyim ba. V'lechein mevakish aleim rachamim v'chuli. You see, there are spiritual saints, there are spiritual people, but they don't live inside the city. They live on a spiritual ivory tower. They are enclosed, they are quarantined all year around in their 4 cubits. The man may be engaged in learning and in davening and in other lofty spiritual matters. Chacham is there. But he's not be'ir. He's not present in the midst of people. He is not sensitive to the struggles of people, to the experiences of people. He's not empathetic, not because he's not a good man. He could be a very good and very holy person, but he's aloof. He's sublime. So the Ramah says, Chacham should be'ir. It's not just a geographical location. He happens to live in this city. Go to this person. It's a description of the personality. This is a person who lives in the midst of the city. Ish Yehudi Haya b'Shushan Abira. Rabbi Yonasan Eibshit said, Et Yelept in Shushan Abira. He understood what's going on. He's dedicated to the people. He cares for the people. He understands what's going on with the people. He knows the world as is. He knows how the world ought to be, but he also knows how the world is. That connection is very, very unique. There are people who are not naive. They find themselves very present in life. They know exactly what's going on, but they don't know what should be going on. They're not sensitive to the deeper spiritual dynamics of life. There are people who are very spiritual, but they're out for lunch. They live in heaven. They live in an ivory tower. You know, they're birds. They soar away. To be able to synchronize in your identity that unique combination, das ist nicht gering, that's not easy. To be able to have 1 foot, sulam mutzav, to have a ladder that's etched on earth, but it reaches heaven. To be able to see the world for what it is, to be able to see people for who they are, to understand what people are going through, and to care about what they're going through. Not just to understand, to care about it, to be empathetic, to appreciate it. But at the same time, to always know what the world can be, what people are capable of, what people ought to be, never to get stuck and paralyzed by the cynicism and the quagmire and the corruption and the despair and the dysfunctionality of people. That's the 2 conditions. Achachem, haroyes hanoilad. We're ba'ir. Somebody who's very, very deeply connected.